So, the Panasonic S5 Mark II is coming out, and it really ticks a lot of boxes in terms of features that I need for the work that I do, which is a lot of weddings and smaller commercials that I film locally. So let's talk about some of the headline features. And then I'm gonna talk about the one thing that I kind of hate about this camera, but I'm gonna take you back a little bit, because I was really excited when the Canon R7 was announced, and I rushed to pre-order mine. It took a little while to get it because everybody wanted one and manufacturing problems, blah, blah, blah. And I finally got it, and I was a little disappointed because for video, although the video looks really good, the features are lacking. And I have a whole other video talking about the features that are lacking. Then I got the Sony FX30, which is shooting us now. And to me, it's a brilliant camera. You really can't get much more for your money when you're talking about sub $2,000 cameras than the FX30. But hold on. Because then Panasonic now comes out with the S5 Mark II, which is really going to give the Sony FX30 a run for its money. And makes me wonder, should I step up to that camera? But let's talk about some of the headline features about this camera, the ones that I really like that tick some of the boxes for me. We're talking about a full frame camera as opposed to what the FX30 is, which is an APS-C crop sensor camera. And what does that mean? Well, it means you have a wider field of view, more shallow depth of field, and better low light performance. So that's, well, a few areas where I feel like it has a little bit of an edge over the FX30. It's also 24 megapixels, which I believe the FX30 is the same exact thing, even though it's a smaller sensor. It's the same megapixel count. Another difference though is you can shoot up to 6K on the Panasonic S5 Mark II, which you cannot do on the Sony. I'm impressed with the features from the S5. And just like the Sony, the S5 Mark II also has a cooling fan. So worries about overheating, you just don't really have it with that camera. And the 4K 60 is unlimited recording, just like the FX30. That was one of the things that put me off about the original S5. I don't believe it had 4K 60 unlimited. And I wanted to have that as an option because sometimes I need it. Now, before we move further, you might have recalled I said there was one thing about this camera that I hate. And here it is. I hate the fact that Panasonic came out with this camera after I got the R7, after I got the FX30. I had no clue they were gonna come out with this. This thing is absolutely amazing. And here's the other feature that it has over the FX30. Not saying that I'm getting rid of my FX30. I still love this camera. But here is one of the major features that I really like about the Panasonic S5 Mark II. It's a true hybrid camera, right? Sometimes I do have clients that ask me to take pictures. I don't like taking pictures, but they ask of it. The FX30 only has an electronic shutter, so that's not gonna be good for every picture situation because you might get those wavy lines in there when you're taking your pictures. Not only that, it doesn't even have a burst mode for the shutter. So you can only take one picture at a time instead of taking like 10 or 12 or whatever. The Panasonic is a real camera. You could do that. And it also has an EVF, which I know a lot of people who take photos, you want an EVF, including me. I mean, it's just nicer to have the camera up to your eye, help steady it. It's easier to do your pictures and stuff. So this one doesn't have that. You got to rely on the LCD for your pictures. I don't mind using LCD for video. When it comes to video, that's all I really use. I rarely ever use a viewfinder, if we're being honest. That's why it didn't really bother me on the FX30. But the other thing that it has, and the FX30 both have, but Panasonic does a little better, is the image stabilization. So the image stabilization on the FX30, in my opinion, is actually pretty darn good. It looks to me that the stabilization in the S5 Mark II looks to be even a little bit better. And that was kind of a goal of mine, was to get a camera that could replace my gimbal, because I don't like always rolling around with a gimbal. It's just an extra piece of equipment, extra battery that I got to worry about, extra balancing and all that other stuff that goes along with a gimbal. And to me, it almost looks like with the S5 Mark II, maybe that could be removed, maybe. Because that was my hope with the Canon R7 as well. And one of the main reasons I bought it was because they boasted about how good the image stabilization was. And in using it, as you can see here on my channel, because I've done some tests, it's okay, not the greatest. And there's going to be some more tests coming for the FX30 in terms of stabilization too, so stay tuned. But I don't know. Those are the main things with the S5 Mark II. And of course they have the X version, which is only like $200 more. You could record to SSD drive with that. There are codecs in there that are up to 800 megabits per second, where the S5 Mark II, the original version, only goes up to 200 megabits per second, which to me isn't a big deal. I don't usually shoot with like super data rich codecs anyway, but you have those additional features in the X version. Plus it can shoot ProRes externally. So, you know, there's some extra, and IP tethering and all that. So there's some extra features with the X that don't come natively with the the S5 II. So I think for $200, it probably makes sense if you're a videographer to probably get the X version. But all in all, I'm gonna say this. Oh, hold on. Man, I forgot the biggest feature too. It has better autofocus. The autofocus is now phase detect, which is like what's in the Sony and the Canon. So the autofocus is way better. So that was a big reason also why I didn't go for the S5 original version. The fact that I didn't have unlimited recording, I might have to worry about overheating, and the autofocus was just not reliable. Now it is reliable. So now Sony has a real big competitor in this S5 Mark II. Canon has a real big competitor in this camera as well. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I mean, I'm definitely probably going to wind up selling the R7. So now my thought is, do I get rid of my FX30 and get like two S5s? Because this thing is just around $2,000. It's actually affordable for a full frame camera with better low light performance, better image stabilization, all the features that I could want in a camera really, and the fact that it's a good stills camera. So I don't really know, but I really like this FX30. I can't see myself getting rid of it, but I do see myself possibly getting a Panasonic S5 Mark II as well, and having two cameras that don't really match entirely, different lenses and different color profiles and things like that. But you know, with the Sony, you could really go in there and really change the color profiles to be what you want it to be. So I can probably get it to match the Panasonic and vice versa, find kind of a middle ground and shoot with both cameras. So I don't know. I think that's probably where I'm gonna wind up going. I don't know what you guys think about that camera, the Panasonic S5 Mark II. But if you're like me and you have FX30, do you feel like you jumped the gun? Do you want the S5 II? Or are you saying your FX30 is good enough? Or whatever combination of cameras you have is good enough and Panasonic is just too little too late? I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that. Go ahead and put it in the comments below. Of course, anything I ever talk about, there's links to it below in the description. Cameras and equipment that I use to shoot these videos are always down there as well. As always, I'm Mike Turner. Thanks for watching, and I guess I'll see you soon.